Welcome to the Gentleman Project Podcast. I'm Corey Moore.
And I'm Kirk Chugg. Cody Hofhine joins us today in the podcast studio. He is a referral from one of our best friends and great advocate for the Gentleman Project, Randy Garn. Thank you, Randy, for continuing to send us just rock star people to be on the podcast. We have great expectations. Corey and I met Cody this morning, and we're super excited already just to get into what you do, Cody, what you've done to become who you are, how you're connecting with your kids. He's an avid listener of the podcast, neighbor to Tyler Dabo, who's also been on the program before. Like, I don't know how we don't know each other already, but now here we are.
And I need a suit, so this is going to be a good.
Perfect.
Be a good day.
Do you need a commercial construction project bid out, or
whatever you need? We've got
it. Yeah. Cody, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Like I said, I was just referred to the podcast just a short time ago by Tyler Dabo, and ever since then, I'm like, man, I got to meet these gentlemen. Like, this is a work that needs to be done. So I'm grateful.
Cool, man.
To be here.
Thank you. That means a lot. Hopefully more people feel that way than we don't hear from you guys a lot. So if you're listening to the podcast and you like it, drop us a review, because that actually really helps us, because as people are looking for a new habit, they get over there to Apple Podcasts and you find the 5-star ones, right? And we've got some great reviews, but if you're listening to this and you feel the same way Cody felt when he started to listen to the podcast, I'm going to do it at the beginning of the podcast this time and not the end. Drop us a rating and a review. We really appreciate it. It helps more people find the podcast. So, Cody, tell us a little bit about your family. I know you've got 4 kids, right?
4 kids, yeah. 4 no more. I think that's plenty for the Hofhine
4
household.
no more. Nice.
God sent us the ones that obviously have no manuals and a lot of energy. They have a ton of energy. So 4 kids, 15, 13, 10, and 6. And it went boy, girl, boy, girl. So there's some nice little split there. Me and my wife, we will be 19 years married in December this year. So some fun stuff going on there.
Very cool.
And we live in South Jordan, Utah. So here, nice local, and we love Utah. We love being here.
We have a lot of cool people in Utah.
We have a lot of cool people.
We've brought some people from out of town, and they've come to the podcast studio, but there's just such a huge group of really great people that are qualified guests to be on our podcast that live here. So we're like super blessed. I don't know that we could do this to the level that we've done it with local people.
Yeah, we're lucky
in many other places. So that's awesome. Tell us about your business real quick. What do you do for a living? Where do you spend your hours outside of the home?
Yeah. Outside of the home, right now, our focus is a company called Joe Homebuyer. So that is just a home buying business throughout the nation. And then we franchised it. So this is something we've been doing since 2015. We're doing it just local. And it's kind of like that. I'm the guy that when I eat something great, or I buy a pair of shoes and they just fit amazing, I'm the person that's like goes to the next day, like my business partner. Everything he wears now is because I come in and I'm like this excited guy. It's like, you got to try these shoes, or you got to try this food. And in 2015, we came across something special in real estate. We got a lot of market share here pretty quick in what we were doing. And I'm just that guy that's like, hey, if this is working for us, let's test this in other markets. Let's see if it can work in another market. And if so, let's share this with people. I believe we're here to bless other people's lives, not just our own. And that was our whole mentality behind Joe Homebuyer, was once we found something that worked and we had the process, the system, tons of failure to get there, we wanted to share it with the world. So we now have about 80 franchisees throughout the nation that bought into our system, and that we help provide all the process, the system, and support to help them have those same blessings in their lives to serve their family and those that they want to serve.
Cool, man.
I like the name.
It's pretty clever.
Super easy to remember.
Very easy.
Very straightforward.
The average Joe. The average
really
Joe
like
can buy a home.
It's super cool. So you've
Like
always
Joe
been
the plumber, right?
You've always been entrepreneurial. Is that something where did that come from?
That's a great question. That comes from a mom and a dad. That my dad was a small-time contractor that just worked his tail off. But I got to see my dad when I needed to see my dad. He controlled his schedule, and that was special to me. And I say this now with my eyes now. At the time, it's just like you only know what life is, right? But hindsight, looking back, I had so much time. Me, my brother, my dad, we'd always be at the sand dunes. We'd always be out, like, all of a sudden he'd come home and he has a motor home. We're like, what? My mom's like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, I sold the trailer, we're doing a motorhome. We're going to Mesa Verde this weekend. And he'd just planned. We'd always hang out. And he had control of his time and freedom, and he worked hard, but he played harder. He loved making memories with all of us and my mom too. And so that's where it started, is just watching him be able to control and have his freedom. And then he would have us on the job at like 8 years old. And it could be just picking up screws and stuff from the job site. And he'd pay us like a penny a screw and things like that. But then quickly he would get us up on ladders and start painting. And then he'd get us to the point where he's like, we're not using tape. I want you to be so good that you're like a master at this. So I want you to cut in free-handed. And then he'd come in and he'd never get mad. He'd be like, hey, you got some of that wall paint on the ceiling. You're going to have to touch up the ceiling again. Or, hey, some of the ceiling paint got on the wall. You're going to have to touch up that wall again. And he just let us make mistakes and fell our way forward. And to that, I owe my mom and dad a lot for just having us on the job site at a young age and learning with love behind what we got to do.
Yeah, that's a cool experience, man. I wish more kids had that experience. So talk to some of the people who may be listening to the podcast who are like, I can't bring my kid to work. We don't do manual labor. What do I do?
That's a great question. Let me think through this for a second. If I get the blessing of having my kids join me, and sometimes I'll go speak on stage, and I'll bring, like, I just recently brought my daughter, who's 12 years old, 13 now, but at the time 12. And I gave her the opportunity to come on stage and speak to 250 people. And she shared just our Hofhine family value. And she just shared what that is, our motto. And she just nailed it. It was like hard for me to follow it because I was like teared up. I was like, man, you nailed it. That was perfect. But for those that can't do it, I believe the biggest thing, we hear this quote all the time. I love that kids spell love Time. And it's just, how do you be present with them, and how do you have conversations that help build them up to become someone better? I think it's just being present. I think there's an easy way with distractions. We all have phones here, for example. We all have computers, and I think it's easy to get caught up in distraction. So it's having a better awareness each and every day. So for those that can't bring them to work, have an awareness every day. That better awareness will lead us to better choices. Those better choices lead us to better results. And do the work. It's not going to be easy. It could mean that I personally have to put my phone away, and it's gone. It's not in my pocket. It's not sitting anywhere near me. I just put it away so that I can be present. Am I perfect at it? No. But kids need that perfect presence when you're there.
I like that. That was a sound effect of Cody throwing his phone on the table.
Right. That's right.
Wait.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
You just really wanted to
I
use
just
that.
really wanted to push that button at least one time.
So I want to say to the listeners, be creative too.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you can't take them to work, can you do something at home that shows them what you do at work? Or, right. I think if you got creative, most people could come up with a way to show their kids what it is they do at work. But so your parents, sounds like they taught you hard work. Sounds like they taught you family time, super important. Sounds like, you know, there's been some really instilled values. And then did you just say your daughter stood on stage and talked about the family values? Is that what you said?
She did. Yeah.
So tell us about that. Tell us about the family values. Where did that come from? How did you come up with it? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
This is something I owe to a mentor. I love this concept. It's called maintain a white belt mentality, right? As you go through life, you start to graduate belts, and there's a point where you get to the black belt. But you still need to maintain that white belt mentality, meaning be humble enough to be coachable. Be humble enough to say, I don't know everything. There's always a better way to get to learn more, be more,
Such
become
a
something
huge
better,
lesson.
right? And so I've loved that concept. And I haven't always had our values. Me and my wife this is last year, for a few weeks for our date nights, instead of going out to dinner or going out to a movie, we sat at her mom and dad's place. It's like a 50+ community. They have this like, what's that little
Like shared space,
the
casita or whatever.
Yeah, like where you'd have like office space and like a pool and stuff like that. We'd use it because no one uses it. And so we'd sit there and we just started thinking, okay, what helps us succeed? What helps us win? And we just pulled out a journal and we just started writing down all these words. And then because our last name's Hofhine, we're like, how cool it'd be if we could find like 3 or 4 values that start with an H. And so we came up with our values, and it's humble, honest, hopeful, and heart for others. And all these words that we were writing all fit within these categories. And then we took time to break down, okay, let's not look at what the definition of the world is for these things. What's the Hofhine's definition for each one of these values, so that they hang up now in, like, if you walk in our house, no matter what door you come in, you're seeing these values. They're big on a canvas print on the wall, and you see these four. In fact, I can pull up a picture. And I was going back to a mentor of mine said, his name is Robin Sharma. He wrote the 5 a.m. Club or The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. He says, Cody, so much of the world measures their winning by the car they drive, the home they live in, or how much money's in the bank account. He says, but if you don't have money in the bank, you're going to feel like a loser like that day. You're going to feel like you lost. He's like, but why not measure your winning by how loyal you are to your values, so that you can set yourself up to win every day? And so me, my wife, my kids, at the end of the day, we stand in front of those posters, those pictures, those canvases on the wall, and we say, were we humble today? I won. Did I have a heart for others? I won. Was I hopeful today? I won. And we just go through our family values and measure if we're winning by how loyal we are to those values.
Love that.
So you do that every night? Like,
not perfect, no. So
nobody's perfect.
No, with kids, but yes,
but
we
like
try
that's
to do that.
part of your like bedtime tradition or your routine.
Yes, and with school, it gets a little bit trickier, right? Because you've got some that
kids get older, it's going to get harder and harder.
So we do the best we can.
Cool.
But they do have a picture of it on their phone that they can also do that themselves.
That's what I was going to say. As my kids become teenagers and we don't have the same schedules that we used to have, where it was easy, everyone's home with that kind of a thing, we started using the phone more, texts and pictures and reminders and that kind of stuff. So you can keep doing it as they grow up. You just have to be creative again.
Very true. We have a daily huddle text thread, and it's just when we find something inspirational, we'll post it in the daily huddle that everyone in the family can look at, share their thoughts and give a little feedback, or, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Prepare for it, read this and see what comes to your mind. Let's share it tonight.
That's awesome.
That's
so
cool.
The phone does work.
Very purposeful. Yeah. That's awesome. So you also brought a journal with you today and gave one to me and Corey. Talk to us about what journaling has done for you and like what these journals are, and maybe how people can get their hands on one if they feel like it's something that they want to implement in their routines. Yeah.
In fact, Craig Manning was the inspiration behind this. He's a sports psychologist for the Milwaukee Bucks. We had him speak at one of our events for Joe Homebuyer, and we asked him, hey, we want personal development to be big, because I love the quote from Jim Rohn: rarely does a man or woman's income exceed their level of personal development, meaning as we become better, our income rises to match us. And so I wanted everyone to start working on themselves to become someone better, and this is where the inspiration came from. And so it's just simplistic. It asks you what you're grateful for each day. It asks you what's one thing you're going to work on for personal development, and then build out a game plan to make sure that you're able to do it. And then 3 big needle movers. What are 3 things you're going to do before your head hits your pillow at night? And I think too many times we overcomplicate this. We give ourselves 10 things to do, and when we don't do 10, we kind of feel down on ourselves. And I think it's not that you need to feel down. I think it's just you overachieved. You overdid what you probably could do, right? Yeah. But 3, what is that? 3 times 365. If you did that each and every day, you're moving a needle a big way, personally, in your business, however you want to use that.
1% a day.
1% a day. The marginal gains. Are we talking atomic habits right there? James Clear.
Yep.
And then I heard it was from John Maxwell. We had a lunch with him, and he just talked about how your awareness is key. Everyone uses the philosophy that experience is the mother of all learning. He says they missed the key part there, Cody. He says what they missed is it's reflection on the experiences. That's the mother of all learning. He's like, if every 80-year-old, if they have more experience, they've had more years on this life, but there's some people I just don't want to receive their information. He's like, because they haven't took time to reflect on that experience that they had. So this gives us time to, the journaling, to go back to that, is we reflect every night too. So at the end of the day, it's set up that journal that we take time to reflect. What were the experiences we had? What did we learn from it? Now you're gaining wisdom.
So you're journaling in the morning for a few minutes, talking about what you're grateful for, what your plan is to achieve your personal development, your big 3 needle movers. And then in the evening, you go over what happened that day, your strength, your wins,
That's exactly right. And look at the smallest one. The smallest one is the one on the bottom. It says what you can improve on. Because sometimes it's easy to get down on ourselves. So we just leave a little bit of space. Like, what's one thing you can improve on? But let's not make it a whole page.
Yeah. I actually really like this a lot. I like that it's so simple because you're more apt to do it. What a great thing to teach your kids to do.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you do that with your kids, but I'm thinking to myself, that's so much better than just saying, hey, kids, journal. Like, I think not that that's bad. Reflecting on your day and journaling what happened in your life is a really good habit. This habit is a little more, still super simple, but a little more forward thinking, a little more on purpose, I guess I would say.
Yes. Agree with you. And yes, we keep it simple that way so that it makes those habits obtainable and something that you're able to do.
That's cool. So it sounds like you've had quite a few mentors. You're obviously a book reader. Talk to us about some of the mentors that have affected you and how, and maybe some favorite books and how, give the listeners some get in Cody's head kind of stuff.
I look at mentors in a simplistic way. I think there's many people I wish I would have met. Jim Rohn was one of them. I wish I could have shook hands and just give that guy a big hug because of so much I learned from him. But I consider my mentor because I've read all of his books. I love the gentleman. Like, he's just an incredible individual. Darren Hardy. I remember at 30 years old, I'm in the office trying to strum up business for insurance. And I'm in this office and this guy just has a bunch of books. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you read a lot? He's like, oh, if you want to be a leader, you have to read. And we've heard that quote, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And he just said, yeah, you have to read it. And he gave me Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect. And that was the first book really at 30 years old. I mean, I've read hit and miss, but from that book, it was like, oh man, I want to read another book. Like, that was a great book. And it had so many insane, like, simple principles, but it just resonated with me. And I was ready. I read. And the mentor appears right when the student's ready. Yeah. And I felt like that was my time at 30 years old.
That's cool.
You've got a pretty good cross section of ages coming up in your family with the 4 kids. Boy, girl, boy, girl.
Boy, girl, boy, girl.
What's something you're struggling with right now as a dad?
Oh my goodness. That would be my own flaws. Like, I have to think of this natural human that I still am. Quick to anger is so easy, right? It's so easy to have some arguing or hitting or punching going on. And the first thing is not like, go and try to understand and seek to understand first. It's like, knock it off, knock this stuff off. Like, we don't have to do this. And then afterwards I'm like, oh, that wasn't the right approach. Grateful that kids are so quick to forgive. That's one of the greatest things I get to learn from my kids each and every day is Dad's not perfect. He's trying his best. He's trying to perfect himself. It's going to take some time. It's taken stages. But because of their perfect forgiveness that I get to witness every day, I'm like, oh, I get another shot tomorrow. I can do better tomorrow. But yeah, the struggle's real. It's hard. And I think what's hard is some of the things that are out of our control, right? It's necessary that we give our kids phones, but then by doing that, it's like giving them a loaded gun. I mean, it's like you just don't know what's going to happen on the back end. So you do the best you can to control some apps, but I also have to say that I'm not here to be the controller either. If they're going to make mistakes, I want them to learn to make mistakes. I want them to learn in a house of love to make mistakes and under our care how they can overcome those mistakes. And so we're probably a little bit against the grain on that one. I know it's very easy to try and take away the rights and the privileges and responsibilities for kids, but man, I've been blessed enough to see in my life some of maybe the results of that kid that had things taken away from other relationships I've watched, and then them making a big mistake for the first time they get to finally make a choice for themselves because they're 18 years old and they have this hard decision and they don't know how to do it themselves because all their decisions were made each and every day for them. And so I've been blessed to be able to witness some of those things, to say, okay, Cody, don't do that, because it's easy for me to probably say, hey, don't do that, take away those, and have a controlling hand in there. But I actually welcome the failure. I welcome the mistakes. And I believe life is perfectly happening for each one of us. And those experiences are here to help us grow and become better individuals.
Yeah, I think you hit on something big there that we've talked about before on the podcast, but not for some time. And that is like allowing your kids to make mistakes and get bruised and beat up in quote unquote life, not physically, right?
Sure.
But sometimes physically, but to be there, as you said, with love and support, right? You can't just have them turn 18 and then finally be autonomous.
Yeah.
Right. Finally just be on their own and they've never had any bumpers. Right. So I feel like that's a huge part of helping our kids grow up. I think, who was it? Brandon Steiner probably hit on this the hardest lately on the podcast. So there's one for you to listen to. And it was just this idea that, hey, you've got to teach your kids how to be adults while you're there. Because if they just become adults the first time they move out of the house, they could really get themselves in trouble and not understand how to handle it all. Phone's a perfect example, right? It's like, let's open it up a little at a time while we're sitting next to them, while we're there, while we can check on it tonight and let them learn how to be responsible with their phone versus just, you're not getting anything. And then someday they've got everything. Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. That's right. It sounds like your parents did that a bit for you. Maybe not with technology.
Yeah, we didn't have it.
Because we're older.
Yeah, we didn't have it.
We're so old.
But your dad letting you paint and make mistakes.
Yes.
Right? And it wasn't like, oh, you can't make mistakes. It was, no, I'm going to let you make mistakes on purpose so that I can show you how to do this.
Yes. My parents loved me. They loved us. They loved it was me, my brother, my sister. They loved us. I don't know if we could come to them and share when we made mistakes, because I think it's easy, and I received it as a kid. It's like you get shamed instead of my wife has been saying this quote so often, and I love it. It's so simple. It's just, people change when they feel good. And so I have to keep thinking about it. When they make a mistake, am I going to be the dad that shames them? Or can I use that as a moment to help them feel good so that they still want to change and become someone better? Because shame is going to do nothing but send them further down that journey. So I wouldn't say, I think what I've learned is because of maybe is a little bit more opposite actually in my household. We didn't feel comfortable telling our parents when we'd made a mistake or we did something wrong, because it was directly a result to more time in your room or getting yelled at. Now, I hesitate to say that because my parents, they're incredible individuals. I learned so much from them. But parenting has changed. As life goes on, you start to find these different ways that these little pivots, these little teeny little shifts that we can do that can make all the difference. And that's one of them, is help them feel good. That's going to help them change. But shame, it just doesn't help. Has
your wife been reading Brene Brown?
Possibly. She reads just as much as me. She's like a book a week. And so and anything parenting, it's in her Rolodex. She knows exactly where to go.
That's awesome. I really like that. We've talked a lot about giving our kids the environment to be able to admit their mistakes and fail forward, as like Cody said. But when we're emotional, I think that's when we have to count to 10 and realize the opportunity that's before us and how we're going to react to it. The first words out of our mouth, the first reaction that we have when a child comes to us and has made a mistake and is opening up to us, what love do we show them instead of anger or impatience or frustration? You can feel all those things, but at the same time, you have this great opportunity. It's like when your kid loses a game, right? And he's super down on himself and down on his team and feels like crap. What's the car drive home going to be like? Is it going to be you coaching him about all the crap that he did and he was so bad and horrible? Or is it going to be, what did you learn from this experience? How can I help you? Right? He's hard enough on himself.
That's right.
He doesn't need a parent keeping on. So I love the idea of just taking a moment. When I think you said one of your struggles was patience. I think we all would probably sign on to that. When we feel impatient or quick to anger, when we just give ourselves the ability to pause for a moment before we say or do anything.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be like, hey, I remember this time that I made this mistake and my dad paused for 8 seconds. Like, they're going to remember the first word out of your mouth. And
I wish I could do that
that's
pause.
important.
That pause is really hard for me.
It's really hard.
I'd like to be better at it.
Well, Corey, here, there's a journal right here.
Yeah, I'm going to write it every single day, the same goal.
For you, my friend.
I'm grateful for my ability to be patient. I'm going to plan to be patient, and I'm going to move that needle every day. There you go.
Now, there's some power to what you just said, whether you realize it or not. Like, this is something like was game changing for me. How many times have we heard positive affirmations are great? I've heard this my whole life.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, Wendy, we're actually telling our kids positive affirmations. For most people, it's useless, because if there's that seed of doubt that you actually don't believe that you're that person that you're saying, like I'm fit, or I'm this, or I'm smart, or I'm great, and you have this seed of doubt that says, but you're not great, your body doesn't listen to it. Positive affirmations are, for most people, it's going to be useless. But if you can change it into a question and say, why am I going to be in flow state today? Why am I going to be an incredible father today? What happens is you start to wake up now your mind to go on your behalf to go find the evidence to bring it back. And that builds your confidence. That builds your belief. Think about when my wife was pregnant, she's like, everyone's pregnant. Now, granted, we're in Utah. A lot of people are pregnant in Utah, right? But it's front of sight, front of mind. Or you're at a dinner table. How many times have you been at a dinner table and 4 tables over, someone yells Corey, and all of a sudden you turn your head and they're talking to a different Corey. But your mind said, hey, someone said your name, and it wasn't you listening to it. Your mind was already aware of it. So if we can get our mind working in our behalf, in our favor, and say, hey, why am I going to be incredible at business today? Now your mind goes and finds the evidence, brings it back, it builds your belief, it builds your confidence, and sends you forward. So we use that instead of affirmations now.
That's good. That reminds me of Think and Grow Rich for some reason.
Yeah.
What does he call? Autosuggestion.
Yeah.
Autosuggestion, which is in that same vein. You mentioned flow state, which probably comes from some kind of a book. I don't know what that is. Talk to me about flow state.
Flow state's hard for for my mind. For some, they can get into it quick. For me, it's
like being in the zone, right?
It's being in the zone. Yeah. Your flow state is like when you feel like, man, I am in my zone, and I'm cranking. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the whole vision behind it. I see how we're going to do it. And you're able to maintain a focus like no other. It's hard. It's very hard. I don't hit it often. I will say what's interesting is, like, when I'm on stage, my brain is at, like, it's relaxed and it's go time. And all of a sudden, all these quotes or anything I've read, and I can even see, like, the page number of the book when I say the quote. It comes to mind, and I can just start going, and I'm in my flow state. But in the office, it's actually hard for me to get into flow state because there's so much distraction. You got your team that's going to come in every now and again, and every time they say, for every distraction, they say every 14 minutes, you're getting hit with another distraction, a major distraction. An email pops up. The worst thing we could do is have our email sitting on our screen so that when people send an email, they get the right to have response right now. Like, we have to set boundaries and say, I respond at noon, I respond at 4. After that, I just shut my email off, and I'll see you at noon or I'll see you at 4 for my responses. But that distraction's hard because then it takes another 25 plus minutes to get back into flow state. So very few people spend time in flow state because of how much distraction is readily available at their hand.
I don't think I have the flow state the same way you do when I'm on stage or when I'm speaking, but I do have it in that same way.
Yeah.
I don't do it professionally other than every day I'm not in my company, right? But I do love that feeling when you're just, like, going, right?
Yeah,
Speaking
nothing can
whatever.
stop you.
You just, yeah.
I'm like, I'm there.
I wish I could have that in my office. That would be awesome.
Me and you are the same person. I'm telling you.
Every once in a blue moon.
Allow it to happen in the office.
I think early in the morning, sometimes I can do that. Like, if I get up super early and then just really focus without all the distractions, right? There's nobody coming in my office. There's no emails popping up because it's 4 a.m. and I'm going to town. That's probably the other time I can get into what you call flow state.
Yeah. Something, I'm not a psychologist, but probably some of it has to do with the stress chemicals that are released when you're expected to perform, right? Like, Michael Jordan probably wasn't in the flow state in practice, but he was definitely in the flow state game 7 of the finals, right? It makes you focus. So I don't know, maybe there's some chemicals that are released that we could.
Some dopamine hits that get us going.
That would be a good thing to teach your kids, though, is how to get in the flow state.
Absolutely.
Like, to even think about that, and just because, they have probably as much or more distraction than we do. you think about
1000%.
Yeah, right. Their friends and their text messages and their social media as they become teenagers and you name it, the 1,000 things that are going through their mind. You know, I can barely get my kids to play their instruments. Like, can you just please play your instrument in the morning, before you go to school? That's like pulling teeth. I don't know if that's the same way for you guys, but or if you have any tricks to the trade.
We lost that battle.
You lost that battle.
We did. We were doing piano, and then COVID hit, and the teacher was, like in her late 70s, and she stopped doing in-person lessons, and my kids were all like, yeah, best thing about COVID is I got to quit piano. So I don't know. We lost that.
I would say for us, I think it's trying to find, and again, not perfect at this, it's trying to find truly what our kids like. And for us, if it's something that they're just fighting against, we just roll with the punches, and it's okay. Like, my daughter hates math. I don't expect an A from her in math. I just don't. I'm one of those guys that's like, yeah, you're probably not going to pick a career that requires math because you don't like math. And she's incredible aerialist. She does these silks, and she'll go up 25 feet in the air, and she's flip down and make my heart go like crazy. But that's her jam. And so we go all in on that because that's her jam. That's what she likes. But some of the things that she doesn't like, we're pretty easy on saying, hey, if that's not you, that's okay. That's okay. Let's go find out what you are, and let's go double down on that.
Yeah. I mean, don't we? I think there's 2 lessons in there, right? Number one is you don't have to force them to do what like try to find something. Our oldest, same kind of thing. We put her in everything we could think of, like swimming and dance and piano and violin and anything. And she found theater finally. And she's all in.
Yeah.
Like she self signs up for stuff and goes to stuff and learns the scripts and works really hard. And it was really hard to find something like that. And we kept telling her, it doesn't matter what you do. We just want the effort. Well, she didn't find the effort until she found the passion.
There you go.
Right. And so I think all of us as parents want the effort from our kids. Like, just work hard. Even if you got C's, if you worked hard and you got C's, do I really care? Not really. Right. But it's trying to find the balance between effort and passion. And I think that's, something all parents probably deal with.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I love the imperfect action, right? Like, just take action. Like, we can't become someone better without action. This is everything in life to become better. It's going to take action. You can't sit there and become someone better. And there's going to be imperfect action. Be okay with that. Fail your way forward. Learn from those mistakes. It's not that I'm looking to fail or I want my kids to fail. It's just you don't have to build a perfect plan. Very rarely can you prepare for life through sitting there and planning. And I will tell you, in fact, in our business atmosphere and real estate specifically, those that take imperfect action are further ahead than the person at home sitting and building a perfect plan, taking no action at all. Imperfect action will trump.
Yeah, that's good. Where did your continuous improvement, humble type of attitude, the white belt
mentality,
where did that come from? Did you always have that when you were growing up, or is that something that was a learned behavior for you?
I had to have it. It was something that I'm always curious. And as naturally just being curious, like I want to learn, I want to become someone better. It was actually a local leader that's no longer here, died years ago, but Gordon B. Hinckley said, the best definition I ever heard was of humble, and he said coachable. And so at a young age, I just, for whatever reason, that I can remember where he said it, how he said it. I can remember everything about that night, and I remembered that quote, be coachable. And then I would hear this message over and over. So as I built an insurance agency and sold that off, there was a transition where I was building a coaching program. And there was an individual that had built a massive empire, well over 100 million. And I'm sitting in his home. And to me, I was like, in my eyes, I'm like, I'm a nobody. I don't even know why I'm in this home or how I'm in this home. And he said something that was along the same lines, but in a different way. Cody, there's nothing worse in life than a know-it-all that doesn't know it all. And ever since then, those things, there's messages that I always hear, and I'm like, Cody needs to hear this, always needs to maintain and then Robin Sharma, he's the one that said, maintain a white belt mentality. It's like, it's not a coincidence that Cody keeps hearing this specific message, and just do your best at maintaining that coachable white belt mentality, humble mentality.
That's cool.
Am I perfect? No, but I am aware of it. And because I'm aware, I do make better choices, and those better choices lead to those better results.
And I assume you talk to your children about the same thing you just said to us. Like, you're like, hey guys, have this white belt mentality to your kids.
Yes, as much as they'll listen, right? Like if the student's not ready, the mentor can never appear. So it goes like that double-edged sword. So all you can do is lead by example. But when they're ready and they ask the questions, man, those are my favorite conversations. And to show some of the imperfections, this was about 3 or 4 years ago. My daughter, and I hope I don't choke up, my daughter that's 13, we found a note in her backpack. And she said that people don't recognize me at school. And no matter what I do, I try to be nice and kind. They just don't recognize me. And I was thinking, oh man. And then I keep reading. And then when I come home, I feel the same thing. I feel like I'm not getting recognized at home. And me and Wendy just broke down. We're crying. And I'm like, no, I don't want my little girl to feel this way. And so one of the practices I do in the morning, thanks to, again, mentors, he says, when you wake up, this is Warren Rustan, individual that's a pedigree that when you look at, you're like, this guy was, he was like on the what would you call it, the presidency for Ford. He played for the Golden State Warriors. This guy has this pedigree, and he is one of my mentors. And he says, Cody, wake up every morning, and this is right after this morning I see this letter. And he says, and just ask yourself, so ground yourself, put your feet on the ground, and just sit there for about 5 minutes and say, who needs me on my A game today? And I just sit there for 5 minutes, and Kenley came to mind, my little girl that just wrote that note the day before. So now I have awareness throughout the day to now hopefully make better choices so that I get better results. Hayden comes downstairs. Kenley's over. This is right when they're going to school. Kenley's eating breakfast. She's eating cereal. Hayden comes down, the younger brother, and he says, Dad, did you see me at that baseball? Did you see when I swung that bat? I hit that ball so hard. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, awareness. Kenley needs you on your A game today. Do you know who else has incredible talent like you, Hayden? Your sister, Kenley. She's incredible. You should see what she does at her thing. So I know how you're feeling right now because I've also seen it not just in you. I've also seen it in this winner over here. And I see Kenley, this little girl, look over and just smiles from ear to ear. But if I didn't have that awareness to sit at the beginning of the day to know that my daughter needs me on my A game today, would I have made that decision? Probably not. So it's just being more aware.
Yeah. Awareness is huge, actually. I feel like as leaders and as parents, awareness. That sounds easy, but I think most people forget that one. I have, right? Like, I think it's easy to be unaware. And I think you have to get centered. You have to find yourself in prayer, in deep thought, in order to be aware a lot of times, right? And to really think, where are my blind spots? What am I not thinking? Who am I not talking to? Who am I not showing love to? What am I disregarding, right? But awareness is huge. And I think some people don't want to be aware, or they aren't humble enough to be aware. I don't know. But I think awareness is such an important learned attribute of a parent, and certainly of a leader. So I'm glad you brought up awareness. I don't think we've talked about that specific word before in the podcast, but I think it's an important one.
I love that word.
I love this idea of grounding, and I love the practical part of the podcast. That's what I pull out of it. Like the slowing down, becoming aware, grounding yourself for 5 minutes. That's practical for me. What else do you do like that you can share with us today?
One thing I think that strengthens us, and this is just a new change, so this is not something we've done for years or even months. This is just something recently, like a week ago, and we're already seeing some cool results, like pretty dang quick. And that is with our older ones, because we put our kids to bed early. We know their next day is a result of how good their night routine is. So our 10-year-old's in bed by 8:30, and our 6-year-old's in bed by 7:30. So 2 of them are out of the way at that point. And then we have our olders, our 13 and 15-year-old. And about 9:30 during the week, because weekends, again, the schedules get a little bit messed up. But during the week, we have been for about last week, we come together and we switch off who's going to say the prayer that night. And we just ask not anything more than, hey, does anyone specifically have someone we need to pray about? And the first night, my 15-year-old was quiet. Second night, he was quiet, didn't have anyone. Kenley had a bunch of people. my wife had some people, I had some people, and now I see my 15-year-old thinking, yeah, this individual could use a prayer tonight. And it's just fun that this prayer is not about asking for anything for us, but it is just a heartfelt prayer in behalf of others that could use a prayer that day. And so that's one practical thing that we've only been doing it for a week, and I'm already seeing some incredible results by just doing that one thing, that one shift in the prayer.
That's awesome. Plus it creates awareness again.
It does. It does.
Like who do we need to pray for? Who needs our help? Who do we need to be kind to? I can't remember where I saw this. I don't remember if it was on one of our podcasts or if it was something I read, but I had somewhere I saw this and I thought it was good and talked to my kids about it. I'm like, every night, ask your kids, who was someone who was kind to you and who was someone that you were kind to? And it creates this awareness that all day they're thinking, who can I be kind to? And who was kind to me? Right? And just, that's so simple. But think about how that would change your kids. Yeah. During the day, they're looking for kindness.
You find what you look for.
Exactly. So
you focus
similar, kind of similar to that,
so
right?
So true. Awareness all creates awareness and reflection, right? Reflection is the mother of all learning. It's not the experiences, it's the reflection on those experiences. So the more you can create time for them to reflect, and if it takes 5 minutes, it takes 5 minutes, but who was kind to you? That's reflection. That's true reflection.
Yeah, that's a good point. Reflection.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we go out too, I'll be like, okay, let's look at how the customer service was, or was this person kind, or, just again, creating awareness. When you're with your kids, you can create awareness in any situation. Yeah. Was that person kind to the waiter? Was the waiter on their game? Was whatever it is, right? You can always create awareness around your values.
Yeah.
Right? Is that person humble, or is that person honest? Whatever. Anyway, that's great. That's kind of like a reawakening for me that I need to do some more of that with my kids.
I've been listening to the news in the truck with my kids as I pick them up and take them, and I'll listen to a news story and I'll look for an opportunity to teach a value based on what's happening in the news. And it could be something, like anything in the news cycle that's based on human behavior. And then I turn the radio off and I talk and I ask questions. And those have been some pretty cool conversations recently. I haven't done that before because I don't think my kids were ever interested in the news, but they're a little bit more interested in the news now that they're teenagers. But that's been kind of a cool practical thing where I'm listening to the news thinking, what value could I teach right here?
Yeah. Based
on what's happening in their world, in the world right now. What's something I could teach them? And, we were having conversations yesterday about politics and the legal system and abortion and like all of these things that get mentioned in the news. And I was like, well, I kind of work. So sorry, kids, you might be listening to a little bit more news.
Those are some deep conversations, by the way.
Well, and my kids are really smart, and they're at the age that, like, I want to instill values in them, and you can't gloss over stuff anymore. They're old enough to understand what everything is, and they're either going to learn it from somebody else or they're going to learn it from me.
Love that.
So,
well, that's a good question. How about this one? So we're always teaching our kids, or we're trying to, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's us. They want to hear from us all the time. Right. So have you guys found ways? What are other ways? Who are people in your lives that your kids will listen to that you want them to listen to? Right. Like, is it grandparents? Is it friends? Are there books that you have your kids read? Where else would you propose that you have your kids getting great feedback content in their lives?
Great question. As you seek clarity, awareness, this is just because it's fresh on my mind. Like, I have to put work in this. This is not easy for me. This is hard for me.
Yeah.
But as we are more clear what we want out of life, it leads us to that certainty of intent. This is huge. Like, intention's massive. This is why am I waking up today? Am I just going to go and let the world handle me, or am I going to control my day, or is the world going to control me today? And it's because of that certainty of intent. What do I want? I have to get that clarity so I can have that certainty of intent. One thing that we do is the environment's huge. You have to protect the environment, and I believe strongly in this. So Jim Rohn, again, going back to the guy, I wish I could shake his hand. He said, you're the average of the 5 closest individuals you spend the most time with. I love that quote. So who are we spending our time with? Randy Garn said, I think you actually titled the podcast like who are you hanging out with or something like that, right?
Yeah, his second one.
Right? It's huge. You have to protect the environment. So what we do is we get clarity. We have great families that we love, the mom, the dad, we love their parenting style that just fit within the way we do things, fit our culture, fit our morals, fit our standards. And we plan vacations at Lake Powell or Newport Beach. And we plan these vacations with great families so that there's this side chat going on. And we're both aware. So us, the parents, we get together and say, hey, I'm here for your kids. So if there's any questions, I'm going to go and I'll do my best to like share if they ever ask me things. And because we surround ourselves and try to put ourselves in the right environment, it takes a village to raise a kid. And I'm learning more and more just how true that principle is, because they don't always want to hear from dad. They don't always want to hear from mom. And so when you can have a great family that you can pair yourself with, and then now during those little offset moments that they're saying, oh man, isn't it cool that we're here doing this? And they share some principle and they come back and like, Dad, you wouldn't believe this principle that Blake just shared with me or Mark just shared with me. And you're like, you son of a gun, I've been telling you this for 10 years. But all of a sudden it resonates, right? When they hear it from the witness of 2 or 3 voices, right? By the power of 2 or 3 witnesses shall the word be established. So they need to hear it from more than us. And that's where it starts to resonate and sink deep.
I love it. That's cool.
Yeah, I like that.
I need to be more purposeful who I hang out with the families that I hang out with.
You've got to get rid of me in your life. That's why.
You've got to set boundaries.
You need more boundaries, man.
I've been asking Corey to come up and fence, but he just has so much going on.
Yeah. If I brought, that would be a great activity with my kids, actually.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
I got plenty of
Hard
fence.
work and fence and some good talking time.
Nature.
Yes. How about last question before the last question?
Ooh.
How do you find quality time, or where do you spend? Like, what do you do with your kids to create quality time with them?
Man, that's good. Well, there's a couple people I could quote. If Oprah Winfrey says it, it's got to be true, right? I love her basic analogy of being present. She just says, be where your feet are. So then there's another individual, Bednar, that talks about, just a local leader here in the church. And he talks about how there's no such thing as balance. Like, there's no balance. What there is being present where you are. There's no equal time per se, but it's be present, be where you are. If you're at office, be at office. If you're at home, be at home. And so it's those little moments. They don't need a ton of time, but they need quality time. And that can be done in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you have, but be present. I just got back from Disneyland last weekend. Me and my wife, we do one-on-ones. So this was just me and my 10-year-old Hayden. And so we went for 2 days to Disneyland because he loves Disney. He loves trading pins. He got to build one of those lightsabers, and he just had an incredible experience. Well, for that time, my phone is off. Like, I don't need to respond to work. I'm here. I'm not at work. I'm at Disney with my 10-year-old. And so I was focused on him the whole entire time. And it was so cool. I captured it on my phone. I was filming him trading these pins, and he's really into like getting all 7 dwarfs on these Disney pins. And he came to this guy that's not works there. Like, he just had a bench and all of his pins. And he went up and he saw Sleepy and like Dopey, I think. And he went up and he says, hey, here's what pins I have. Is there one that you would want for the 7 dwarfs? And the guy took 2 pins and then traded him 7 dwarfs. And I captured this. He turns around and he does, oh, and his eyes were massive. And he does, yes. And I instantly send it to my wife. And she calls me just teared up. She's like, did you hear how cute it was when he said, yes? I'm like, yes, that's why I had to send it. So it's just being present with the time we have. We work. We have careers that is part of, it's necessary. That's how we provide for our families. But there's also a time where each one of us had those moments saying, why am I here? Like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think we're all aware enough to know, to have those instincts to say, I shouldn't be here. I need to be at home. And listen to those instincts. And am I perfect at it? No. But I try to do my best that wherever my feet are, or wherever my feet are, be there. Don't carry over the other items.
We're going to have to ask Scott O'Neill if he said that or if Oprah said it.
Yeah.
Hey, Oprah's going to win that battle. And I
don't know. Scott wrote the book, Be Where Your Feet Are. So
Yeah.
actually,
she did not
wrote that book.
Yeah,
I read
it's
that
an
book. It's
amazing
a great
book. Yeah.
I was given that by a
Good
dear
podcast,
friend.
by the way. He was on the podcast too.
I love
It's
that.
great. I think Chad Lewis said something similar too. That a coach had taught him. So good thing. All right. Well, it's the last question that unfortunately we could just keep going. You're great
stuff.
Great guy. And
Well,
it's
you're
been a great
incredible
podcast.
host. So
But,
thank you.
yeah. But last question that we always ask is, what does it mean to you to be a gentleman?
It won't be a coincidence. I'm going to go back to this same phrase that we've said a couple times. I think a gentleman is aware. When you're walking out of the store, a gentleman looks back to make sure, is anyone else walking out that I can hold this door for? Is there anyone coming in that I can stay an extra 3 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe a minute, because someone is a little bit further away and they have a walker or a wheelchair, and it's going to take them a little bit longer to get to that door, but I'm going to be the one that holds the door. A gentleman is aware, and that's going to take us getting out of our comfort zone. Arguments happen all the time between relationships. Are you going to be the one that has an argument with your wife and then you're supposed to go somewhere and you're like, well, tonight, since we're in an argument, I'm not opening your door for you. And you have this arrogance, right? Or we can be aware and say, no, I still love my wife enough that regardless if we just had an argument, I'm opening her door. And I can imagine my grandpa, who's no longer with us, he was a gentleman. He was the last to eat, and women always got their food first. And so we carry these little traditions, and it's just having awareness and making sure, how do I serve people? How do I give them the best version of myself? So to simplify it, a gentleman's aware.
I love it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you, guys.
And thanks for listening to the Gentleman Project podcast. There's lots of good stuff in this one. Share it with somebody that you love. I'm Kirk Chug.
And I'm Corey Moore. Have a great day. Be aware.